Hi everybody, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be making Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. So for this simple, easy Mickey Mouse, we're going to take 6 strips of quilling paper and we're going to start as usual by joining these pieces together. For the ears, we need 2 strips of the black quilling paper and these are just going to basically be a tight coil to turn them into ears. So once that is off, you can glue it in place and we need 2 of those. And because this is such a large amount of quilling papers, there's 6 in total. I'm changing it for this one. It doesn't hold it in place for you, but you need to be able to put your fingers to hold it in. I find it just by keeping your finger on and just make sure that you tighten it as it goes. Once you cut it all the way, pinch it to pull it off. Tighten it as much as you can by holding the middle and then pull the outer paper until you get a nice tight coil. And you can just wrap the rest of it by hand and then put some glue on to secure it. Once these are done, I like going over it with either a brayer tool or a little rolling pin or anything like a round pencil just to get any parts down because this is going to be a flat project. So there's the head, and then we're going to add the 2 ears. And I think that's about the right size for what we're going after. Okay, for this design, this one isn't his face as such. This is his head, but I want it to resemble Mickey Mouse because I want to do a Minnie Mouse as well. This is how the basis starts, so obviously Minnie Mouse will be exactly the same. And we're going to add some decoration onto this to make it look like Mickey Mouse. So for our Mickey Mouse, I've taken a piece of red paper. This is actually origami paper, but you can use any red paper. And I'm going to use a straight edge because I want it to be straight across the middle. And I'm going to do it just above where that hole is so we're not actually seeing that hole. And I'm just going to trace around the circle onto the sheet. Now we have that in place, we just need to cut it out. Once we've got one cut out, we need 2 of them. We want to be able to do the same on each side. Once that's done, you can then go ahead and stick these on. And putting this glue onto the quilling paper actually seals the strips so they don't move around. You do want a thin coating on there, you don't want it sort of coming all the way through, especially if you're using thin paper like I'm using. There's one side. We need to leave that to dry, but in the meantime we can go ahead and stick the ears on. Leave that to dry. So I've cut some little shapes out there which are for the buckles on Mickey Mouse's trousers. This is a little bit fiddly, but we'll get through it. So just to help me out a little bit, I'm going to get a toothpick just to help me position it once it's in place. You can stick it down. Once that's dried, flip him over on the other side and we will put some buttons on this side for him. This glue does dry clear, but I just like taking any excess off. Once you're happy with the position of them, leave it be. Then I'll take a blob of glue, get some red quilling paper, stick it on that bit and let that dry. Then once you've got that dried, you can go ahead and mark off where this reaches to. So you know you've got the exact right size. Just making a fold mark where that is so I know it's straight. I can chop that off. Then all that's left to do is glue it on. He's looking cute. Then I'm going to take a piece of 10mm quill strip. I'm going to wrap it around the top of my pencil. Get to this point, I want to glue it and we'll let that dry for a little minute. Once that has had a little bit of time to dry, you can then pull the pencil out and go ahead and spread your glue. Just going to put a little bit more glue on the end just to make it secures itself really well. The last thing we want is Mickey Mouse becoming loose. Whilst we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to take 3 strips of black quilling paper. We want to cut these in half, so I'm just going to get these lined up and I'm going to chop them in half. And then we need to quill these. This time I'm going to use my little handheld one. It's less cumbersome, just makes it a bit easier for my hands to handle. And this one actually quills from the opposite side, which makes it easier for me to do. All that's left to do now is stick the bottom on his bottom and just give that a few minutes to dry. Whilst that's drying, we'll work on the bottom half of the pencil holder. And for this is why I've got these strips here. What we're doing is creating feet. So this is the topper and this is the feet. And what I'm going to do is raise that up so it actually holds it a bit higher up, and then I'm going to put some boots on the end. So I need to roll a quill that's the same size as that. For this, I'm going to join 3 pieces together just to see if I've got the right length. And I'm using some strips from a kit that I used that already has the sticky stuff on the actual quilling paper. I'm just after getting a size to see if this is going to be wide enough to hold Mickey's legs in place. I'm going to test this by winding it at the bottom because I want it to be able to go into the widest part of it, and just make sure that's going to give us enough space to fit these little legs on. Once you've got a bit established, you can continue rolling, and I'm after this being quite wide so we can fit them on. So when you're doing this by hand, do a bit of rolling, and then when you get to these seam bits, just give it a little bit of help to bend around, because it does try and stay flat because it's got a lot of glue on it, and it's 2 pieces that I've joined together. Once you've gone past that point, make sure you're pulling your quill tight so you can get around the rest of it. So I'm using 5mm here, which is 1/2 centimetre in width, but you could use 1 centimetre or 10mm if you wanted it that little bit higher up. And I just want to test that I'm happy with the width. These should sit right on top. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. And just to hold this shape, I'm going to put a layer of glue after I've flattened it all around the bottom. And that just makes the coil look a bit stiffer. It's less likely to come away. We're going to bring in some yellow for Mickey's shoes. These strips already have the sticky ends on them, so we don't need to apply glue. I'm going to start off with 3, and we're going to get a shape to see if we can make something that looks like one of his boots. And swap my device head over. And we're going to start by quilling this. So I need to make sure this is the right size, not just for his shoe, but also for it to poke out at the front of our holder for our pencil. So he has some shoes, and he has them as more of a pointer. So I've got my stencil board, and I'm doing this because I need two of the same size. So I've rolled it to about the size that I want, and I'm going to put it in the nearest one to it. And I don't want to go as big as that because that's smaller than these ones. So I'm thinking of going for this. So once you're happy with the size, you can then take off the tape. I'm going to put it in there, and then I'm going to cover it with glue so it keeps that shape. And I don't mind if some of this seeps into the actual seams because that's what I'm after. But just to even it out, I'm gently going over, and I'll keep the thick coat on there so it stays in shape, but I'm just spreading it out gently with the cotton bud. And then we'll leave that off to the side to dry whilst we work on the next one. So exactly the same thing, I'm doing 3 of these strips. Again, these have the sticky tape already on them. You can use normal quilling paper with glue. And this one's had a little bit of time to dry. I'm just going to put him to one side just so I can get the initial shape of this one. Just make sure it's the right size. Before I secure it, but I'm just going to put him back in so he can finish drying. Unfortunately, I only have one of that oval shape. So we are going to have to wait until that one's dried off a bit before we can put this one in and start making the shoe a bit more complete. Right, so that's definitely got a better shape, and I think it can dry out of there now. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing with this one. I'm going to pinch it till it expands into the full shape, and then we're going to pop some glue on it. Again, I want this one really coated so that we don't miss any of them layers. So it's looking likely we need 1.5 strips of the yellow. So I'm just sticking that together. So it's 1.5. So we've got 1.5 rolls coiled there, and that's going to be the back of his shoe. So imagine this is like the front part, the foot, and this is the heel, like the heel of the shoe. These are going to be underneath this bit, and it's just basically to keep it centre balanced. So when you put your pencil in there, it's going to actually stand up. So we've got the yellow boots, the black holder, and then I'll show you the next bit once we've attached these together. So I'm just after getting a little bit of shape on this side so I can stick it to it. So I'm just going to sort of flatten it on one side. It is quite a tight coil, so you're not going to get a lot of movement in there, but between that one and that one we should get enough to hold it together, and then this one's going to be on top anyway to hold it. I'm with parts that are going to be held together, I do like putting excess glue on there and even letting it seep out at the sides. It is a clear glue, this, so once I know it's white at the moment, but once it's dried it will be clear, plus it'll be hidden by this black holding here. So I'm just basically holding it in place until it dries, and then sometimes I even go down the sides if it's not seeped out enough, so that I can actually put some more glue on there so it holds it in shape. Once that's been sat there for a little bit and it's holding its shape, I'll put that over to one side. And I'm going to pull this in. It's not completely dry yet, but what I'm going to do is just flip it over and coat the other side of it so that starts drying as well. It seems to be holding its shape, so that's not too bad. So this one out, and just while he's drying, I'm just going to get the heel of his shoe and stick that on in place. Again, I just want to make sure I get a flat bottom just so it has got more surface area to attach. I always try my best to hide these seams in anywhere that I'm actually joining these together. Let's have a bit of time to dry. Just move it over to one side with his friend. We could go about actually gluing these two next to each other as well. So whilst they're drying and setting, I'm going to put glue on the heel and glue on the foot. I'm going to stick them two next to each other so they can start being friends. Now don't worry that the hole's too big on this one, it was just the way I actually quilled it. I was coming up with different ideas of what would actually look best. So you do, as long as the final shape and the size is the same, that's the main thing that you're after. So I'm just going to hold them in place until they dry and just bob them over to one side. So I'm going to start sticking these around. I want them more towards the outside than the inside so it supports the pencil size. I think I'm going to actually need 6 for this. Once that's dried, I will go in and go around and seal the edges as well, just so it becomes more hardened. And just to finish Mickey Mouse, we are putting a layer of glue. On there, making sure it's over these holes, this hole in the middle, because that's where the pencil nib is going to go through. It's just time to leave that to dry. So we're doing some tight coils of black to support the base of Minnie Mouse's pencil. I'm just going to secure this with a bit of glue because the sticky doesn't feel that sticky. There's one. For Minnie's bow and shoes, I'm going to use the same pink I'm going to start off with the shoes. I'm taking 2 pieces for each shoe, so we need 4 in total. And she has big wide shoes, quite weird looking wide shoes at the front. Just going to bring the cardboard in, just so I can get 2 shoes the same size. That one is exact. I don't really want exact, or do I? She's got quite round shoes at the front. Yeah, I'm going to keep them that size. I'm going to keep them as a tight coil and then just squish them a little bit because they really are quite wide at the front. With these, I'm going to push them so that it's round at the front. I'm going to make more of a triangular towards the back. Yeah, it's called a teardrop shape, but we just want that rounded off a little bit for when we stick the back of the shoe on. Because they are quite rounded at the front of her shoes. And we'll do the same with this one. Yep, happy with them. And then we need a piece of this pink for the back of the shoes. And 2 of those. I want this a little looser than where it is coiled, just so I can put that shape in there as well. There's one. All I'm going to do for this is just use a ruler and push that in, so I can try and keep the rounded shape at the back. We'll still have that kind of pointy side for attaching it to the shoe. I'm doing it on the seam where it actually joins, just so it hides that seam. So I've them together for a minute. Once that's had a minute to dry, I'm going to stick the other one on, and then we're going to harden them up with some added glue on the top. Just stops them coming undone, especially if children have them, which, well, I was going to say most children will have this type of character, but I know there's plenty of adults out there that like Mickey and Minnie Mouse, so could be either of them. But either way, it stops them being heavy-handed, or if they get knocked off a desk, they're not going to be falling apart. The 3D models that I make, I have tested those, throwing them around to each member of the family in the living room, throwing them at the floor, throwing them at each other, and yeah, they failed really well. I've not had any injuries yet, no casualties. Like I said, I'm going to leave that to dry off a bit, and I'm just going to go in and coat that with some glue. For Minnie's bow, I made 4 teardrop shapes. I'm just putting those together now. Then I'm attaching a strip of quilling paper to the top, just letting that dry for a little minute whilst I can use that to pull that around the bow shape. As I'm getting to these areas where it sort of goes in on the side of the bow, I'm using a pin just to put that crease in so I can push it right in to be glued. Then I carry on running this strip around and gluing it all in place. Once it's all glued round and I'm happy that it's covering all the areas, I can then snip it off and glue it down. Then I get another 5mm strip, same colour, and I'm just using this to cover the inside of the bow just to give it that bow effect. Once I track round, I can glue that down. Now I'm making the pencil topper that goes between the head of Minnie Mouse and the pencil. And I'm doing this by wrapping a 5mm piece in the same colour around the top of the pencil and then coiling it around itself and gluing it into place. Once I'm happy with the size, I can snip that off and glue it up. Now obviously I haven't got the 10mm in this colour, so what I've done is I'm joining two 5mm together, and that's quite possible to do. You just need to make sure you've got the same thickness all the way around so that when they stick together you can make sure that they attach at the right place. I just want to try and marry the seams up at the same time. Not going to be as good as having one piece, but it's going to be closer. Just make sure you go around, maybe even put the pencil in there to help it stay in the same shape. Just leave that to fully dry. So after leaving that to dry, I'm going to go ahead and get these shoes and the feet side things stuck together. Once that's drying, I'm just going to flip it over so we can add the glue on this side. I've just stuck 5 with these little circles around on top of the base and the shoes, and that's where we're up to now. We have the circles that have been drying on top of that, and we need to stick that to the bottom of Minnie's head. So let's put some glue on here. And you want it even on both sides so that it doesn't go heavy on one side, otherwise it'll make the pencil topple over. I'll just give that a couple of minutes to dry. And here they are, all finished. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. I hope that you can click that like button, and if you're not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, it's totally free, but it really helps my channel. Hope these were helpful for you and you enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon, guys. Bye!